My brief today was to talk about modern healthcare. And I initially thought, well, that should be easy. But then I thought, maybe that needs some definitions, because what I might consider to be modern healthcare might be a little bit different to what you consider to be modern healthcare. So what is modern healthcare? It's probably easier to start with what it isn't. So let's have a look at what it isn't. Unfortunately for me, doctors aren't God anymore. The concept of doctors being sort of all-powerful, all-knowledgeable, omnipotent sort of creatures, that's a historical relic now. And I think one of the key things that has made the change for modern healthcare is access to information. So I think the internet has played a massive role in converting how we approach healthcare. Prior to the internet, getting access to good information about our conditions or treatments that are available was really very difficult. But now it's very easy for us to look up. We can look up our medications on the internet, we can look up our conditions, we can look up our risk factors, all those sort of things on the internet now, and you have access to the same information that I have as well. So that's really leveled the playing field. If you like, it's a little bit like that scene in The Wizard of Oz where they pull back the curtain and they can see the guy behind pulling the levers. That's what healthcare has become now. It's changed a lot. And I think that's for the better. What it's become now, and what I would consider modern healthcare to be, is to be a collaboration. It's a working together. It's about teamwork, and it's about bringing the best people to help you with your health together and using their resources and using their skills. It's more about putting you in the driver's seat, and I think this has been the big change. In not so modern healthcare, we might have considered that your doctor looks after you. There were even situations that were quite well accepted where doctors would not tell their patients the illnesses that they had because they didn't want them to worry. That would be completely unheard of and unacceptable now. Doctors just can't get away with, well, not get away with, but even that concept of us being parents is no longer in existence. So it's more about the patients driving and you driving your own healthcare. So what's the problem with modern healthcare? I think the biggest part of the problem is that modern healthcare is really complicated. There's a lot of information to absorb. And it's very hard to get access, sometimes to good information, but also just the sheer volume of information to wade through is really hard. If we look at new drug listings as an example of just how increasingly complicated medicine is getting, the FDA in America, who regulate the drugs that are available to physicians and for use in America, they list 20 to 30 brand new drugs every single year. So this is growing almost exponentially. And if we look at the medical research, there was it's hard to get numbers exactly on this, but there was a journal that looked at this value in 2003, so this is 12 years ago, and it was suggested that there were 45,000 journal articles published every month that were looking at healthcare and science related to health. So this is a massive amount of information. If you even pare it down to just the absolute cream of the crop journals, you'd still be reading about 8,000 journal articles every month to keep on top of it. So this is not something that anyone actually has time to do. So we need to rely on people to get us the right sort of information, and we need to know how to get access to those people. To give you an idea of how rapidly medicine's changed, I'm hoping you're looking at me thinking I'm not that old, because that's important for the next part of the whole thing. What we've got on the slide here is a description of an operation that they used to do a lot when I went to medical school. And this was a procedure called a vagotomy. And the details aren't terribly important, but we did this for people who suffered with ulcers in the stomach. And we did it we cut the vagal nerve, actually severed the nerve supply to the stomach to stop the stimulation of acid production. So that these people could get over their severe heartburn and their peptic ulcers. This was an operation that took hours, and people had very long recovery times, and it was a very expensive operation. That's been replaced by a single tablet. In fact, when I was learning how to scrub up to do the whole dance in the surgical theatres when I was a student, one of the nurses, who was the charge nurse for the theatre, was asking the surgeon, why don't we do any vagotomies anymore? We haven't prepped for one of those in ages. And he said, this has killed the business. It's completely different. One tablet a day now and there's no need for expensive surgery. So that's one example of just how things have progressed even within such a short period of time in medicine. So what advice, if the question to me was, what advice can I give you to help your healthcare? These would be the things. Get a good family doctor, educate yourself, be skeptical, be proactive, talk to your parents, document, and own your own health. Get a good family doctor. Why? A good family doctor is like the conductor of an orchestra. We might not be able to play all the instruments, but we know where they all are and we know what they can do. And so if you're working with us as the conductor of the orchestra, we can get you in touch with the right people. Certainly in the Dubai medical community, if you have a headache, you're well within your bounds to go off and see a neurologist as the first port of call. But you may have missed a sinus headache. You may have missed a stress at work that was giving you problems. You may have missed a neck issue that was giving you tension headaches. So that's where I think getting a good family doctor is really important. Educate yourself. The internet gets us access to the most amazing amounts of information. People often apologise to me when they come in and say, oh look, I've looked up my symptoms on Google and they expect me to be upset by that particular statement. I actually think it's a good thing. I encourage my patients to become aware of their own health and look things up. I'd much rather someone come in and ask me questions about something they've seen on the internet because it shows they're really interested in what's going on. And if I can work with them to tease out the answer, that's fantastic. And I think a modern doctor really has to say that we may not know as much as you do about a condition, because I don't have your irritable bowel syndrome, for example, and you may know about your symptoms and your triggers and your flare-ups in more detail than I do. So I think that concept in medicine has changed. We've got to recognise that people know and need to be involved. Be a bit sceptical. My question on this one was the old adage that all roads lead to Rome. The same thing works. All symptoms in WebMD lead to cancer. So the caution there was a quote that they gave us as medical students. Medical students will hear hoofbeats and think of unicorns. What we're missing there is context. So while I applaud going out and getting yourself educated with your health, make sure you're bouncing it off people who can feed back to you whether what you're thinking and what you're doing is the right sort of thing. Be proactive. I've got a bunch of flowers here, and I just wanted for the men in the audience to think about this for a second. When was the last time you bought your significant other a bunch of flowers because you wanted them to feel good, not because you screwed up? So there's a difference here. And the ladies will tell us there's a big difference from a relationship point of view. If you're doing it because you're sick and something's wrong and you're trying to fix it, that's very different to an out of the blue, I just wanted to give you this because I love you. Talk to your parents. This is one thing that often surprises me as a doctor, that people don't often know what's going on with the health of the people around them. And it's important because if your dad suffered heart disease when he was in his 50s and your brothers suffered heart disease when they were in their 50s, if you're sitting in front of me at the age of 52, I know you're at higher risk than someone else who doesn't have that family history. So it's important to know what your parents have been through, what your siblings have been through. It's worth knowing what medication they might be taking and why. Are they taking it because they have high cholesterol? Is that something you should know about for yourself? Is there a cluster of breast cancer in your family? Do you need to know about that? Those sort of things. So have a chat to your folks. It's an important thing to do. Keeping good documentation. This is a critical one. I'm surprised by the number of people who come into me and they'll say, yeah, I've got an allergy to, one of the antibiotics. You've got to know about your health. If it's your health, and this was the last point too, own your own healthcare and own your own health. It's important to be able to explain to someone exactly what you're taking, what you've been taking, what your health issues are. So know it yourself and keep it documented. And lastly, own your own health. The only person who's going to care as much about your health is you. So own it yourself.